This summer, I'm celebrating my 30th birthday by taking myself on a little solo trip, and I want to tell you all about it. Hey there, it's Elisa, but of course you can call me Ellie, or birthday girl, whatever works best for you. So I've brought up this trip a couple of times on this channel at this point, and I bet you're wondering, where is she going for her birthday vacation? Well, I guess it's time to finally break the news. Hold on, let me get some to drink real fast. Much better. Believe it or not, for my 30th birthday solo vacation trip, I am going to Disney! I know, I heard your collective gasp through the screen. But okay, obviously, it's not a big surprise. I love Disney, I love planners and planning things, so it just makes sense that I spend my 30th birthday planning a trip to Disney. And for this trip especially, I want to bring you along on the entire trip process. I know I've said that before, but this time I really mean it. I want you to come along with me from the point of planning and scheduling to really diving into those itinerary details to how those plans actually pan out once I'm there, and then obviously memory keeping in my planner once I'm back at home. So for this video, I not only want to tell you about where I'm going, but what led me to decide to actually go there. Because I've known for quite some time that I wanted to celebrate my 30th birthday at Disney. But once I made that decision, I had to decide if Disney meant Disneyland in Anaheim, California, or Disney World in Orlando, Florida. I have gone to Walt Disney World a couple of times, more than a couple actually. I've also been to Disneyland just once, but it was honestly amazing. And honestly, I love both. So an argument could be made for me spending my birthday trip at either coast. So how do I decide if the Disney that I want to go to is in California or Florida? With a color-coded list of pros and cons, of course. All right, so this isn't going to be a typical pros and cons list. I really wanted to take a closer look at those key factors that make the two resorts different. Starting off with what first comes to mind when I initially compare Disney World and Disneyland is just the size of the resort. Now, if you haven't been to both, you may not realize just how much significantly larger Walt Disney World is than Disneyland in Anaheim, California. Disneyland just has 2 parks, while Disney World has 4, plus 2 water parks, plus a couple of mini golf courses, plus at least 1 full-size golf course, and like 8 times more hotels. So which is better? With Disneyland being smaller, it's a lot easier to get around, and it takes less time to get through everything that I would want to do on a trip because there's just not as many things to do. So that means I could be less stressed about getting everything done on my to-do list, and I would need less time to get all that stuff done, which translates to less money because I wouldn't have to spend as long on that trip. The only downside is that does mean that there's fewer things to do. I want to have this big special 30th birthday trip, and at Disneyland after like 3 days I'd be pretty much done. On the other hand, Walt Disney World is bigger, way more stuff to do, way more things to see, to the point where even if I spent 2 weeks there, I wouldn't be able to get everything done. And that's exciting. I have been there more times, but there's still so much to do there that I have never done before. But also so many things that I know I'd enjoy doing there anyway. But that does mean that I need more time at Walt Disney World, which means more money and more PTO days from work, at least in order for me to have a satisfying trip. I don't want to come home from a birthday trip and feel like I didn't get to do half the stuff that I wanted to do. So better or worse here, it's hard to tell. Disneyland, probably cheaper and a shorter trip. Disney World, a little bit more expensive, a longer, more vacation-y kind of feel. But I am moving soon and I don't have unlimited PTO with work. So sometimes there is such thing as too much of a good thing. So speaking of big money defining differences between Disney World and Disneyland. So not only is it pretty different on the inside of the parks, but the areas surrounding the resorts are vastly different. When you're in Disneyland, as soon as you walk out the park gates, you're smack dab in the middle of Anaheim, California. Whereas in Disney World, you walk out the gates of a park, but you're still technically on Disney World property. So if I were to go to Disney World, I would spend basically my entire time on Disney property because I'm not about going to Disney World without staying at a Disney Resort hotel. I mean, I guess I could if I was really desperate, but I don't want to do that. With Disneyland, there aren't as many hotels to choose from, and the ones that are there are really, really expensive. There's no way I would pay those prices to stay at those hotels, which means that I would be staying off-site, which means that I would be spending a lot lot of my time every morning and every evening navigating Anaheim alone, going to and from my hotel, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but there's just something a little bit more comforting with navigating Disney World property by myself, where I'm at Disney, where their entire business is not only keeping me safe, but keeping me happy. And then Disneyland, where as soon as I step out of the park, I'm on my own. So that part is definitely a point that goes to Walt Disney World. However, like I said, if I do go to Walt Disney World and stay on property there, I have to pay Disney prices. Whereas at Disneyland, if I stayed off property, I would have a lot more freedom to be able to choose which types of hotels I would want to stay at and probably get a lower price. Although it is Southern California, so it probably wouldn't be like a significantly lower cost, but still less than staying at Walt Disney World. There's also the fact of familiarity with the two resorts. Even though I have gone to Disneyland, it was just one time and it was just for 2 days. Whereas Disney World, I've gone there 4 times as an adult, and all 4 times I have stayed multiple days. So I am way more familiar with Disney World than I am with Disneyland. With Disney World, I would be a little bit more comfortable with planning the trip since I know what to expect, and I could probably still find some stuff that's new to me that I haven't done before there, but Disneyland really has the benefit of being an exciting unknown. Since I'm not as familiar with that resort, everything would still feel new. And that kind of adds to the magic, I think. It's not so new that it's scary because I have been there before, and I would be excited to try things because I've just never done them before. And so as much as I love the things that I love at Disney World, I think I'm kind of leaning towards Disneyland for that, as far as what wins for the familiarity aspect. Now, I do want to point out that I did also compare travel costs because flights are expensive these days, but at the time that I was looking at flights for the time of my trip, the cost of the flight difference was literally $2. So definitely not enough to sway my decision either way. And now that transportation to and from the airport is no longer included in your resort stay price at Disney World, I'm gonna have to pay for ground transportation at either coast. But another thing that I considered as I was trying to decide between Disneyland and Disney World is the weather, which isn't a make or break for me, but it does carry some weight. I'm wanting to go on this trip around my birthday. I don't think I want to be traveling over my birthday, so the trip is going to be like a few weeks after my birthday, so like August, early September, which is really hot on either coast. But in California, it's a little bit more tolerable, I think. I've never been to Southern California during the summertime, but it does seem like even if it gets as hot as Florida, it's just not as humid and the nights get a little bit cooler, and the weather is just not as violent. In the middle of summer in Florida, the air is basically like swamp water. You have to like swim through the air to get anywhere. And then there's the summer rain like the sky is falling, and it's kind of getting into peak hurricane season at that point. So as far as weather goes, I'm leaning towards Disneyland a bit for that too. And the last and final thing that I really considered when trying to weigh my options between Disney World and Disneyland is just like the vibes of the parks. Disneyland in Anaheim, California is the theme park that Walt Disney created. When Walt Disney first had the idea to make these parks, he started at Disneyland. That was the idea, and things grew from there. So for a weird little Disney nerd like me, that holds a lot of value. But again, Walt Disney World is such a tourist-based location, is designed to draw people from all over the world. So everything is exciting and fun and accessible because they want families from the entire globe to go there and spend as much time there without leaving as possible. Where at Disneyland, it's more of a locals park. Sure, people come from all over, but there's a lot more locals that go there. So it's a lot slower, a lot more nuanced. So there's a lot more history at Disneyland, but overall the vibes are pretty good at both. Okay, I hear ya. Elisa, get to the point. Where are you going, right? So even with this beautiful list, which was expertly crafted and color-coded, if I do say so myself, I realized with this list that I could pretty much convince myself into either coast with all of these items. What it really kind of comes down to is cost versus comfort. At Disneyland, I would save money. I know I would save money. I would want to spend way fewer days there if that's where I went, and that would save a ton of money, as opposed to Walt Disney World, where I would want to go to every park, which would take longer, which would cost more money. But I feel safer at Walt Disney World. Not saying that I feel like I'm in danger or something at Disneyland, but with Disney World, I've done it a few times, and once even on my own. I know the airport, I'm familiar with all of the transportation systems, and I know where to go and who to contact if an emergency happens. And especially how things are going with my life right now, I want to have as little worry and anxiety as possible with my birthday vacation. So I am going to be celebrating my 30th birthday at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. Surprise, surprise, I know. I mean, look, when I originally decided that I wanted to go to Disney for my birthday, my brain instantly thought Walt Disney World. But once I really got serious about planning the trip, I thought, maybe Disneyland could be a possibility. And I did genuinely consider it at some point. Obviously, I made this list table thing, but at the end of the day, Disney World is just where I want to spend my birthday. Well, my birthday celebration. I'm going to be spending my actual birthday at home. Now, that isn't to say that I'm not going to be going back to Disneyland. Just maybe not for my birthday. And after all the money that I'm going to spend on my birthday, maybe not for a little while, actually. But I hope that this was helpful. Obviously, there is no right or wrong answer for Disneyland versus Disney World. It really just depends on what you are looking for in a vacation. But if you're trying to make the decision of which one to go to, hopefully this video helped a little bit, or at least gave you some ideas of what to consider when you're looking at your options. Or if nothing else, for my family and friends watching this, to give you some insight into what's been going on in my brain for the past few weeks. But yes, Disney World, not Disneyland, at least for this trip, which means that I have a lot of planning for a very big trip ahead of me, which I find very exciting. Hopefully you do too, because I do plan on sharing more about this trip planning process as we go along. In the meantime, I just want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope I can plan on seeing you in my next video. Bye!